What's going on, gardeners? On today's 2-minute garden tip, I'm going to show you all how to pick basil the right way so you have a never-ending basil harvest. When you purchase basil at the grocery store, they often come in bunches or bouquets, and the stems tend to be very long, and this can actually mislead you into harvesting your basil the wrong way. The correct way to harvest basil is to identify the largest leaves on the plant, then you flip those leaves over and you look 1 or 2 nodes down, 1 node down, 2 nodes down, and then you identify a long piece of stem. And then what you want to do is you want to snip the stem roughly in the center, and what that is going to do is it is going to encourage branching at that stem. So here you can see a stem that we cut weeks ago, and then that encouraged bilateral branching about 1 inch underneath, and that formed 2 more branches, and we now have 2 gorgeous sets of leaves because we intelligently pruned our basil plants. This branching happens very quickly because basil plants grow very vigorously as long as their nutrient demands are met. And when you prune in this manner, instead of having a tall top-heavy bush, you get yourself nice, rounded, stocky, very productive bushes like you see right here. The reason why those grocery store bouquets are so misleading is because the branches are so long, you may think that you should go down to the bottom of the basil plant and chop off the branches. But that is the worst thing you can possibly do, because then you won't have any nodes remaining to encourage that lateral branching and continually fill out your basil plant. If I were to cut off this branch right here, nothing would replace it, and my basil plant would just get narrower and narrower, and then you'd get yourself a tall, top-heavy plant. That's not what you want. So when you want to come out and harvest your basil plant, you want to keep things in balance and as symmetric as possible and encourage lots of lateral branching so you have a low, stocky bush. So the way I would come out and prune this basil plant is I would take off all of the mature leaves, and I would make sure that I'm cutting the plant in such a way that I'm taking the largest leaves while keeping everything as rounded of a shape as possible. And all of these leaves that you see right here, in a matter of days, these are going to become the very large leaves that we could pick. And the cuts here will also encourage additional lateral branching. So when you prune your basil in such a way that you're only taking the largest leaves and you're keeping the basil plant as rounded as possible, you will wind up getting a never-ending basil harvest on your plants. You don't necessarily need to use pruning snips when pruning basil for your branches. A lot of times you can just easily snip them with your finger, but the snips do come in handy if you want to work very quickly or if you're dealing with very mature stems that don't cut well. And that is how you prune basil plants, so you have a never-ending basil harvest all throughout the growing season until frost. If you want more details on how to grow basil, I'll link to a video both above and down in the video description that is a detailed guide on growing and harvesting basil. If you're also looking for an awesome set of pruning snips that are dirt cheap, I'll place a direct link to these down in the video description for your convenience as well. And that's today's 2-minute garden tip. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.